TCU's got a couple key players back for the Saturday's game against West Virginia, according to Sonny Dykes at his weekly press conference. Also, a lot of you had questions. I'll address why is Cordell Russell not on the field, how this offense can get better in the red zone, how this team is progressing through the first 4 games, all that and more coming up next. We'll also talk some basketball today. It's Locked On Horned Frogs coming at you right now.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right, Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I'm your host, Steven Simcox. Coming at you on Tuesday. Please continue to subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also find us wherever you get podcasts in its audio form. Sonny Dykes held his weekly press conference on Tuesday. It's actually kind of going on currently while I'm doing the show, but I'll pass along some important notes for you. First off, getting some help at the receiver room today. Dalen Wright's been out I guess he's been out for the last 3 weeks now with some sort of injury. Haven't gotten a lot of details on it. He's been suited up for that game against SMU, just didn't see the field. Sonny Dykes says he expects Dalen Wright will be back. Also, Jack Besh will be back, and he'll be available. He was out of the SMU game because of an illness, and I don't think I addressed that this week. I remember watching it back and being like, where was Jack Besh? So he didn't play because of an illness. He wasn't available. So both those guys will be back in the lineup. We'll see as the year continues if someone kind of emerges as the next big wide receiver for this team as wide receiver 1. We've discussed a lot about how that's been, a position that's kind of gone back and forth all season long, but both those guys will be available. No update that I can see on Johnny Hodges. He's still week to week. I think this is a week where Johnny will really be missed. I mean, I feel like Shad Banks, Sonny talked about it, like Shad's basically their third starter. He plays a lot of snaps, and I love the athleticism that he brings to the field. I feel like there's a lot of areas where he can help this team, especially, getting sideline to sideline and not being as much of a liability in pass coverage. But Johnny's really good against the run, and I think Shad can hold his own. But this West Virginia team, there's no real secret to what they're going to do. They're going to run the ball downhill, try to come at you, and use their defense to lean on that aspect of their game as well. But Jack Besh and Dalen Wright will be available for the game on Saturday against West Virginia, according to Sonny Dykes. So that's good news. Ben Taylor Whitfield replaced Brandon Coleman, but Coleman came back in the game, and so I think Coleman will be around as well. But Whitfield's done a nice job so far this season. We talked about the offensive line yesterday, and Sonny had a quote about the O-line. Let me make sure I can find it here and I get it right. He says they're getting better. He said they've had some nagging injuries, which have affected kind of where they're at right now. But they have 7 guys that they trust, and they're hoping to get to 8 or 9 players before the end of the season that they can trust. But yeah, if this O-line can get more consistent, especially in getting push in the run game, that would be a huge boost for this offense. So I want to tackle some audience questions in segment 1 here because some of you have reached out and had comments or just questions about this team, and I haven't had a great chance over the last few days to actually talk about it. And so we'll actually start, since we were talking wide receivers there at the start of the show and guys getting healthier. Jesus said what they need to do is get Cordell Russell the ball, and he brought that up. I think it was after the post-game show too. Like, Cordell Russell has not played a lot. We haven't seen him featured much. And, he was one of those many guys that we talked about before the season as this could be a dude, true freshman, 4-star talent, highly recruited out of high school. I don't have a great and full answer for why he hasn't been on the field as much. I know Cordell missed some time. Well, he missed the entire spring camp. He missed all spring practice with a broken collarbone. And so he wasn't available until fall camp started. And I imagine it's probably just simply the fact that he's trying to still get acclimated to this offense. And as much as people want to say, well, just put him out there. He's really good in 50-50 ball situations. Let him run, throw the ball up, and let him go get it. And maybe they'll give him some opportunities to do that as the year goes on. You want him to be a fully, functioning, full circle wide receiver that can run the route tree and understands all those assignments. And so that would be my guess as to why he's not seeing the field as much. But I agree with you. I think he's a playmaker. I would love to see him on the field more. I would like to see, him get the ball in his hands and have opportunities to make plays. I feel the same way with JoJo Earl. I know JoJo's had some trouble with just holding on to the football. Honestly, he's had a few drops, but just manufacturing touches for him and Major Everhart and Jordan Bailey. I think those guys can make plays. But I've said this before too. In the offseason, like we list all these players that we think are going to be huge parts of what the team is, and they're going to come up with big time production. But then once the game starts, like it's always a pretty consistent reminder of these rotations get shorter, and you find the guys that you can trust and you roll with them. And so, not that Cordell can't emerge like later on in the year. I mean, we saw like late last year, Jordan Hudson became somebody who got some opportunities, and we all know the story there. He ends up transferring and is at SMU now. But as the year went on, they trusted him more, to be on the field and to get him the football. And so I think that's just be patient. He's still a true freshman, but I get the frustration, and I know that, we all want to see him on the field making plays because that's what he did at the high school level. Zoom Play says for the red zone offense, he says it's simple. Just run the ball in the red zone. We have the biggest offensive line in the conference. And he said he listened to the Locked On Big 12 podcast, and Drake Toll said that TCU can be in Arlington, so he feels like people are starting to take the Frogs seriously. Yeah, running the ball would help a lot. I mean, that was the big downfall against SMU. 3rd and 3, 3rd and 1 in some situations, just not being able to get reestablish that line of scrimmage and get first downs and keep drives alive. And so if you can run the ball in those tight windows, in those places where the field is shrinking and defenses are going to go to heavier sets, and that's a huge advantage, and that would open up a lot of things within the offense. If you can run the ball well, especially in the power run game, then you can use some play action and different looks off that to get your passing game going as well. But I think one of the keys too is just in general sustaining drives. Like the team's got to be better on first down. You got to stay out of 3rd and long. You got to stay out of 2nd and 8, 2nd and 7. I talked yesterday about the lack of explosiveness, which I think is an issue, but you have to find a way to get more chunk yardage on first down too. And it doesn't always have to be like 15 or 30 yards, but even if it's a play of like 6 or 8 yards, that sets you up in a much favorable situation and gives you a lot more of the playbook to work with, when you're in those down and distance situations instead of 2nd and 8, 3rd and 13, 3rd and 10. TCU's been in too many of those situations this year. They should have to do a better job of staying on schedule. Richard Berry said, I'm not sure who signs off on these play calls on 4th down and scoring position. If you have to kick a field goal, then kick a field goal. And he says it still looks like they're working on finding who the lead receiver is in this offense. The fake field goal was bizarre last week. I don't know what the story was there. I imagine it was a called play, because I just can't see a scenario where Jordan say, I'm sure they have different audibles and looks that they can work off, but I can't imagine Jordan Sandy's just going rogue there and calling fake field goals where he's throwing the football. But it didn't work, and it was confusing to me. It was also confusing to me why they passed up a field goal from like 45 yards on that 4th and 4, I think it was, late in that game. But I get having a killer instinct and wanting to go for it. But if you want to go for it, put your offense out there. I know fake field goals can be successful, but also just strange, like you have a 2-score lead against SMU and you're putting that on film. Now, I guess the blessing in disguise was play didn't get off the ground, so I'm not even sure what teams can gather from what they were trying to do. But just a very odd moment in time to call that particular play and to just try to use some trickeration there. And Matt Clark says Frogs are 5-6 against West Virginia since joining the Big 12. Strangely, the home team has lost 6 of the 11 contests. We need to take them seriously. Yeah, I'm sure they are. I mean, I talked about it yesterday. I think it's really intriguing what they're doing. They run the ball well. They play good defense. I'm actually surprised that I didn't look into this before I saw your comment. I'm surprised that TCU's only 5-6. Like, I thought that was a worse record because they had so much trouble with the Mountaineers from that stretch from like 2018 to last season when they finally got the win on the road in Morgantown. And that was a dogfight last year with West Virginia on the road. Got caught in a shootout and ended up winning the football game, but it was a one-score game for the majority of that contest. So I think this is a good matchup for TCU, though, with their athleticism and their ability to spread this defense out, and with how well they've held up against the run this year, even though this will be a different beast that they're facing, this West Virginia team, because they run the ball really well and they do a good job of protecting their quarterbacks and giving their defenses, or their defense a chance to catch their breath and rest and dominate time of possession throughout the game. When we come back, we'll do our Big 12 Whiparound. We'll look at all the other results from the rest of the Big 12 Conference. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. All right, I need to get my Gametime app out for this read because we're talking about Gametime, the secondary ticketing app that you need to use. If you want tickets, you need to go to the Gametime app right now, and you can use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So if you haven't used Gametime before, download that app today. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. And I'm taking a look here to see what the latest deals are for this TCU West Virginia game, 7 o'clock. Don't forget, wear black. It's a blackout. Team's going to be in all black uniforms. You can get tickets for as low as $15. Now, that's high up there. That's in section 408. But, there's not a bad seat in the Carter. Well, some people might disagree with me on that. Section 224, that end zone angle, $17. You can get tickets for $21. $35. And if you want to spend more, you obviously can. I just like to look at the cheaper tickets because that's more applicable to my personal tax bracket. But I know there are some ballers listening to Locked On Horned Frogs who want to spend more and really show out at Amon G. Carter Stadium when they get there. But the Gametime app is fantastic. They have last-minute deals, so you can wait until like Thursday, Friday, even Saturday morning for this night game to buy tickets. But again, you can use that promo code LOCKEDONCollege to get $20 off your first order. The tickets are sent directly to your phone. You don't have to worry about, okay, do I have to go to my email, download these, all those things? No, they just go directly to your phone. And one of the things I love about the Gametime app, which you talked about before, they have it shows you where your seats are, and then they have a picture. This is what your view is. This is where you'll be. This is how you'll see the field. They leave no, stone unturned, and they leave no mystery as to, am I getting good seats where I have a great angle of the action. Gametime app, download it today. They're a proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. All right, so Big 12 Whiparound. We do this every week, typically on Tuesdays. What happened around the rest of the Big 12? We know TCU beat SMU 34-17. Texas over Baylor 38-6. Horns are now 4-0. Baylor's now 1-3. This was a dominant performance. I mean, Texas kept Baylor out of the end zone, and they really just ran that game from start to finish. Longhorns look impressive. Baylor, I'm not sure what happens with Dave Aranda. I know they really like him, but, man, this has been a rough start. Your only win this season is against Long Island, and that was a performance that the fans weren't super impressed with based on, the reaction I saw. And so you've lost to Texas State, Utah, and now Texas. And Texas looks really solid so far. Again, they don't blow people out like 70-0. But this defense is legit. That defensive line especially looks really, really good. And so that's going to be what I hope is a fantastic game in Fort Worth, when we see them down the line later on in the season. Oklahoma, they win their Big 12 opener against Cincinnati. It was on the road, Cincinnati's home Big 12 kickoff game. Sooners win 20-6. Brett Venables' defense looks really good. The Cincinnati team is kind of limited on offense in year one of the Scott Satterfield era. But they're doing really good work on the defense side of the ball and doing enough on offense to get it done. Dylan Gabriel, 322 yards passing and 1 touchdown on the day. How about this? Impressive win for the Kansas Jayhawks. In Lawrence, they get a victory over BYU. BYU was coming off a win against Arkansas. Cougars now 3-1. Jayhawks now 4-0. 38-27. Big win for Kansas, and they just continue to find ways to impress. Jalen Daniels, 14-19, 130 yards, passing with 3 touchdowns. But Kansas ran for 221 yards on the day. Devin Neal, led their attack on the ground with 91 yards rushing. Keaton Slovis had a good day throwing the ball for BYU, 30 of 51 for 357 yards, 2 touchdowns, but did have 2 picks. This Kansas defense, they fly around, they cause turnovers. Their offense is really good. They play Texas this week. Should be a fun matchup. That's definitely one to watch between those two teams. But, man, Lance Leipold has got that program turned around. They look great. Iowa State over Oklahoma State, 34-27. Cyclones continue their up and down trajectory. Lose that game to Ohio 10-7, but then they come back and beat the Pokes. And as much as my friend Cody Stovall will hate to see this or hear this, I think we might be witnessing the end of the Mike Gundy era at Oklahoma State. That team last year had really after that loss to TCU, where the Frogs came back and won in overtime, things went south for that team specifically that year. And then they had so many guys that they lost to the portal in the offseason, but the schedule looked really favorable. And I remember saying before the season, I was like, I think Oklahoma State, I don't think they're as good as they were last year, but you look at the opponents they're playing, and I think there's a path for them to get 8 or 9 wins. It does not look like it's the case right there, or right now at least. They did finally decide on a quarterback. They went with Alan Bowman all day, but they fall to Iowa State, and the Cyclones are now 1-0 in conference play. Houston, they played their last non-conference game of their schedule. They defeated Sam Houston by a final score 38-7. Holgerson's offense looked better, but, we realize who the opponent is there and playing Sam Houston Bearcats, which is a very good FCS team. And actually, I shouldn't talk bad about them because one of my good family friends, her son plays for Sam Houston as their starting running back, and so I'm a big respecter of that program. But they're playing Houston, and we're a little overmatched there. They fall to the Cougars by a score of 38-7. Houston offense, at least for this week, looked better, and they'll start. They'll continue Big 12 play because they started against TCU. They'll continue Big 12 play against Texas Tech this upcoming week, and then Kansas State, they take down UCF. 44-31 was the final score in that one. And so K-State, they continue to roll along. They bounce back from that loss to Mizzou. They look good. UCF had their backup QB in that ball game. But offensively, K-State can run the ball. UCF came back and tied that game early in the third quarter. And then, or maybe took a small lead. I can't remember which one, but K-State really controlled the action after that and got it done. And so a nice win for the Wildcats. UCF is pretty solid. They play Baylor this week in their Big 12 home opener, which should be a fun matchup. Yeah, they tied, or they took a lead 24-21. UCF did on a 3-play drive to start the second half. Timmy McClain, their backup QB, hit Kobe Hudson for a touchdown. But then after that, it was all K-State. They outscored the Knights 23-0 after UCF had that brief window when they were leading. So that's your Big 12 whoop around for today. West Virginia, man. Did I not mention that score? West Virginia beat Texas Tech 20-13. And I watched a lot of that game, which sounds kind of strange because if you remember that 2:30 window on Saturday, like Ole Miss, Alabama were playing, but I saw that Tech was trailing early in that ball game. And I was like, well, I want to see how they respond here because, if they fall to 1-3, that's a big miss for them. And, of course, West Virginia was picked to finish last in the conference. But West Virginia just ran the ball really well, and they play good defense. I think TCU is the best offense they've faced all year and has, a quarterback and skill guys that are at a level they haven't seen yet. But Baron Morton is Tech's backup, and he took over after Tyler Shook went down. And, he's not he's a sophomore, but he's not someone who hasn't played at all. He got a good number of starts with that kind of 3-man rotation they had because of injuries last year in Lubbock. And so he's someone that you would figure could hold his own and manage that offense, but he did not have much success against West Virginia's defense on Saturday. And they also, they beat up Pitt. They held them to 6 points, which Pitt's offense is not very good. They don't look like a great Power 5 football team, but anytime you keep somebody out of the end zone, that's a big deal. And then on the flip side of that, They shut down Duquesne, and they hung around that Penn State game until things sort of got away from them at the end of the ball game. But I think this West Virginia defense is really good. And I feel like TCU's defense, I know everybody's like, well, the opponents are the opponents. But I think they've improved a lot. And, they've given up 1 touchdown since that Colorado game in 3 weeks, which is impressive. And if this defense continues to trend upward as the year goes on, that's going to be great for this team as a whole. But this feels like the type of game, or the way they're playing on defense, a West Virginia team that's limited. If you go play good fundamental football, manage your run fits well, don't get distracted by some of the things they do in the QB run game, then you should be able to handle West Virginia's offense pretty well, and hopefully make this a low-scoring game. And then on the flip side, your offense can potentially make some big plays. But, West Virginia's a good team. And Neil Brown kind of on the ropes here in his tenure. Everybody thought he was going to have a bad season and get fired, but they're 3-1, and they're making things happen. So we'll wrap things up when we come back. We're actually going to talk some TCU basketball. Frogs get a big-time commit on the recruiting trail, and the Big 12 schedule is released today. So all that and more coming up next. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. One of our new sponsors, DoorDash. And a lot of you know DoorDash. You use it for ordering food. It's super convenient. It comes right to your door. They now have grocery delivery. So, like, if you forget, if you're like, oh, man, I'm going to make some pancakes, but I don't have syrup, or whatever the case may be, you can get groceries delivered directly to your door with DoorDash. As I said, that convenience is fantastic. If you need fresh groceries and don't have time to go to the store, or you just don't want to, like, who wants to run around the store anymore? And like, we do a lot of our stuff curbside or by delivery. I know that's the way of the world now. They have thousands of grocery stores you can choose from, the best in your neighborhood. You can get exactly what you ordered, or they'll make it right. Enjoy quality groceries just like you picked them up yourself. You can get a DoorPass membership and get even more value. You can get 50% off your first DoorDash order, up to $20 value when you use code LOCKEDONCollege at checkout. That's 50% off, or up to a $20 value. 0 delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter the code LOCKEDONCollege. Don't forget that code is LOCKEDONCollege for 50% off your first DoorDash order. Use DoorDash not just for delivery of great takeout, but they have grocery delivery now as well. Final segment here on Locked On Horned Frogs. So we don't talk a lot of basketball in the middle of football season. I know football is what drives the bus, but basketball's had some news come down, so I wanted to highlight it. Actually, this news came down right before the SMU game. Like, this young man made his decision at 10 a.m. That SMU game kicked off at 11. But Micah Robinson, small forward who is originally from the DFW area, but he plays his high school ball at Oak Hill Academy, which, if you follow high school basketball at all, Oak Hill Academy, one of the more famous kind of charter schools that has churned out a lot of NCAA and NBA prospects through the years. Great size, 6'6", 200 pounds, 4-star player according to 247 Sports. The 247 composite has him as a 3-star player, and he's class of 2024 in basketball, so won't be available this season, but the next season, projecting he's going to play his senior year of basketball in high school, and then he'll be on campus at TCU the next year. Really impressive offer list, though. Teams like Kansas State and Kansas. He had narrowed down the process to schools like Vandy, Virginia Tech, but also had offers from Arizona State, Cal, Texas Tech, and many others. And this looks like your prototypical Jamie Dixon type of wing player. Super athletic, really great size. He's going to hound people defensively. Jamie Plunkett, who's done a really good job covering Micah and TCU basketball in general for Horned Frog Blitz, the 247 affiliate for TCU. He compared him to Micah Peavy, somebody who can, get stops, get to the rim, make things happen. And so a nice little pickup for TCU, landing him from Oak Hill Academy, again, 4-star player who had a really impressive offer list. And lately, TCU they've really done most of their work as far as building the roster in the portal. This team especially is really a complete overhaul from last year's squad. A couple of years back, they did something similar when they brought in, Emmanuel Miller and Jacoby Coles and Chuck O'Bannon and all those guys. And many of those guys, well, some of those guys are still here, but a few have moved on as well. But they've done a lot of work in the portal the last few seasons. That's kind of become the new way that they have built their roster. But maybe we're seeing this change now a little bit. You still want to land those high school kids if you can, but really the Blue Bloods have kind of cornered that top 50, top 100 market. But this is a nice pickup by Jamie Dixon and his crew, and we'll see where they go from here in that 2024 class. But, yeah, Micah Robinson from Oak Hill Academy, 6'6", 200-pound, small forward, wing player, and he's headed TCU not this upcoming season, but the next season. And Jamie Dixon continues to try to do work here on the recruiting trail in the high school ranks, which is something that TCU basketball hasn't done as much lately. Okay, so the conference schedule. Here's your men's conference schedule for the year. They start against Kansas, so a game in Allen Fieldhouse, that'll be tough. So game against Kansas, and then Oklahoma, Houston, Cincinnati, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, Baylor, Texas Tech, Texas, Iowa State, West Virginia, Kansas State, Texas Tech, Cincinnati, Baylor again, BYU, West Virginia, UCF, and that concludes your conference schedule. So the things that stand out here, Big 12's had that round-robin schedule for years where you play 18 games, you play everybody twice. Still 18 games. You play everybody at least once, but you do not play everybody twice anymore. So they only get KU once this year. Their repeat opponents this season are Baylor, Cincinnati, Iowa State, and it looks like that's it. Those are the only teams that you're playing twice. So, Texas Tech. Well, they play Texas Tech twice as well. But Texas, BYU, Oklahoma, Houston, Kansas, K-State, a lot of those schools are only playing once. It looks like they get West Virginia twice as well. So the repeat opponents are different this year. But that's your conference schedule, and the non-conference schedule is out there as well. TCU basketball, not that far away. They'll be getting practice started here soon, and then games will start in the next month or so. And exciting team. I think it's going to be really tough to replace Mike Miles, but they did bring in a lot of talent in the portal. And so we'll keep you posted on TCU basketball as well when that news comes down and as the season gets started. We'll be back again tomorrow. Matt Jennings will join me. It's Locked On Horned Frogs. It's your team every day.